So first thing we're going to do is groom your dog out completely before they go in the bath. I would recommend that you try and get any dead coat, any tangles out before you bath them. A lot of people are under the misconception that when you bath a dog the knots fall out. Fortunately they don't. The knots actually become tighter and it can make it a lot harder for you to get it out afterwards. So I always go right through the coat, give it a good brush and comb through, check if there's any knots. If you are going to shave all of the legs off, then you don't need to worry so much about this. But if you're going to do like me, you're going to try and leave a bit of hair around the face and on the legs so that they don't look too scalped, then you do need to try and groom those out really well first. If you're going to, I'd recommend, if you can, try and put your dog onto a table. I've got a table with a bar over the top here to clip the lead on. If you haven't got that, then perhaps pop the dog on to a kitchen worktop or surface, something like that, with perhaps a rubber mat or car mat underneath to stop them from slipping and scratching the top. When the dog is elevated, they just tend to be a bit more cautious and they don't jump about quite so much. It's also much better for your back and your legs than trying to sort of lie on the floor with them, chase them around on the floor. So if you can, try and elevate them up on a table somewhere. I'll always put a lead on so you've got a little bit of control over your dog. If you've got something to clip the lead to, perhaps a cupboard door or something like that, then just loosely clip the lead up. If you're going to do this, then don't be tempted to ever walk away from the dog, even for a few seconds, to go and answer the door or anything like that. The second you walk away from your dog, it is likely to follow you and jump off the table, and you run the risk of them strangling themselves or pulling the table down on them or hurting them. So if you need to walk away at all, either take the dog with you or get somebody to come and hold the dog until you get back. Okay, so just by clipping the dog up, just gives you two free hands to be able to work on the dog, rather than having to try and hold the dog with one hand and clip it with the other. It just gives you a little bit of control, really, over them. Okay, so what I do first is go right the way through the coat and give them a good brush through. So with Poppy here, she comes to me in between her full clip for a bath and groom, so it just stops her from getting too tangly. So she's not very naughty, but I'm going to start with the tail. If you want to use a brush first, a wire brush is better, something like this with the wire spikes on it. For a long coated dog like this, you're not really going to do much good with a very soft cushion brush with a coat like this. So you've got a good wire brush. I always put, as you're brushing, if you put your hand behind the brush as you're brushing, and you're brushing onto your own skin behind the dog's fur. If it's hurting you, then it's hurting the dog, so you need to be using less pressure. If it's not hurting you, then you know it's okay for the dog. Okay, so we brush through it first and go through with a comb. Just make sure your tangles are out. I'm not going to worry too much about Poppy's back this time, because during the winter her owners have her back left much longer, so we would be combing right through this to make sure that there's no dead coat and mats in there. But this time she's having a summer clip. You see she's quite hot, she's panting, she's quite hot. So we're going to be taking her back coat really short down for a nice summer clip. So I'm not going to worry too much about her back. I'm just going to give it a quick flick over the brush, but I'm not going to worry about combing it right the way through, just on her legs. So with her legs, if you are planning on shaving the whole lot off, again, you don't need to be doing all this, just a quick brush is probably sufficient before your dog goes in the bath. With Poppy, they like to leave, and I certainly don't like to shave it all off. It's not something I like to see. So I tend to leave a little bit of hair on the legs, on the skirt. Poppy has a little skirt. Again, you can, if you don't want to have the skirt, you can shave that right under there. I'm going to leave a little bit of a skirt on her, so it's short enough to cope with, but still looks quite pretty. So with her legs, you're going to lift the back foot up, start right the way from the bottom, comb round the feet like this. If you've got tangles in there, brush them first. As I say, Poppy's not very knotty, so doesn't need very much. So go all the way round and then section it as you go. So lift the hair up and do that little section there, going all the way around to the inside of the leg, like that. Lift the hair as you go, all the way up to the top. Careful of this area here, just on the inside of the leg. There's quite a loose bit of skin here, so you could catch that bit with a comb, so be a bit careful with that. Okay. If you do find like a large knot or a tangle, One very good cheat is I have some double-sided thinning scissors here. This is just a little finger protection here that you can see. It's just little rubber inserts that you can get that just pop into the scissors. If you're doing a lot of thinning work when you're doing this, your fingers can become quite sore. It's just protection for your fingers. So these are double-sided thinners. These are very good for easing out knots without taking the whole knot out, so that you've still got a bit of fur left on your dog. So you can lift the fur up, so you had a bit of knot there. You just very carefully, again, feel with your fingers, make sure you're not getting too near the skin, feel where the skin is with your fingers first. Go to the base of the knot and just a couple of little bits with the thinning scissors, and run your comb through or your brush through after, and it should pull the knot out like that. If it's a particularly stubborn knot or mat, you may need to get some straight scissors, and again be very careful where the skin is and just nip a little bit under the base of the knot, and then try and work it through with your brush or your comb. It's not really worth trying to pull really big mats out of your dog, because it's just going to hurt them, and they're going to be quite distressed about being brushed again in the future. So just, you know, try and take the minimal amount out as you can. If it doesn't come out easily with a comb, cut a little bit more out or thin a bit more out with your thinning scissors. Okay, so we'll go under the skirt. Under the leg here is where it's really prone to matting. It's somewhere we tend not to brush very well. They get hot, they get wet, so it does get quite knotty under there. So try and get a good brush under there. Okay, it is quite a sensitive area. It will hurt the dog. If you pull a big knot under there, it is going to hurt the dog. So because we're going to clip her down later, I'll show you afterwards how to run the clippers under there to shave out any really tight knots underneath, because it's sensitive. You don't want to hurt them. It's not going to show when the dog's walking around, the foot's back down. It's not going to show under there anyway, so it's not really nobody's going to notice it. So it's just a bit kinder and quicker for you. So we're not going to do too much on her back today. So with the front foot, start at the bottom again, comb through. Poppy's already quite nicely brushed, so take long, brush all the way around, working your way up and up and up until we've got that all groomed. Let's try the camera ready to go ahead. Okay, that's a good girl. So with her head, again, if the ears are very thick and you have some thinning scissors, you might want to, I'm just going to try and move this a little bit. You might want to just lift the hair up and pop a little bit of thinning scissors into the hair just to thin it out. Again, be very careful where the ear, the skin on the ear finishes and where the hair starts. Use your hand, feel round, feel where the skin is. You don't want to be nipping them with the scissors. Okay, so probably brush it out first. Both sides, again, keep your hand at the back of the brush, like this. Try and get this in the camera. Keep your hand at the back of the brush, like this. You see I'm actually brushing my own hand. Okay, if it's hurting you, then it's going to be hurting the dog's ear. If it's not hurting you, you know that you're applying the right pressure. Okay, it'll feel a bit scratchy, but it's not going to hurt, as long as you're not doing it too hard. So we're going to do that. Do the same for the other ear. Brush the outside, brush the inside. Okay, and then for the top of the head, just hold a little bit, pinch a little bit on the dog's beard if they have one. You don't want to be pulling too hard, but you're just putting a little bit of tension there, just so that you've got control of the dog, not going to be jumping all over the place. You suddenly poke them in the eye with a comb or something. So I'm going to comb all this out. Depends how long you want their head. Poppy's owners quite like her hair quite floppy on the top. They just like the natural look. So I won't be cutting that too short today on her. Some people have this quite short on the top. Depends what suits each owner really. And then with her moustache and beard again, they like a little bit left. So we're just going to comb that both sides. If you've got any real tangles there, you might need to just nip that through with your thin scissors or with your straight scissors. Underneath here, the beard, again, going to try and just comb that through. Just gently hold her nose just to support what you're doing. Comb that through. Okay, behind the ears here is usually the biggest problem for matting. It's somewhere that we don't tend to brush. It's a warm area, it gets knotty. So you want to lift the ear, try and get a good brush behind the ear there. If you do have a particularly big knot behind there, because we're going to be clipping her back down, we're going to be starting from behind the ear. So again, you don't want to be pulling the dog too much, causing them too much distress. So if it's a very big map there, I would suggest either nipping it out with scissors, or we'll leave it until we get to the clipping, and then we're just going to shave that out just so it's quicker and much less painful for the dog. Okay, so we're going to repeat that on the other side and trim the groom out the other side. If you're going to, I usually clip the dog's nails before they go in the bath. I would suggest, if you're not used to doing dog's nails, you've never done them before, I would suggest that you don't do them. I would suggest that you leave that for your vet or your groomer. Even if you're going to carry on grooming the dogs yourself at home, I would probably still leave the nail clipping to a vet or a dog groomer. Just pop in and get those done. They have got a vein, a quick in the nail, which will bleed if you don't know what you're doing. Black nails are particularly difficult, like Poppy's. You can't see where the blood is, the blood flow is on black nails, so it's quite difficult to see what you're doing. If they're not curling over, or they're not causing the dog a problem to walk, not digging into the skin, then I would suggest that you leave those and get those done professionally. If you are going to do them, these are the clippers that I have. There's various things you can buy. These are my sort of original clippers. You can buy ones that sort of file the end of the nails, which are probably a bit safer to use than a proper clipper. Because I've always done them, I know what I'm doing, so I will show you with these. If you are going to do them, I would say literally just take, Poppy's aren't particularly long because she hasn't done every 4 weeks, so I literally just nip the very tips like that, not too much, okay, the very tips off. Again, I've been doing these a long time, I know what I'm doing, so you need to be careful. They've got a little dew claw at the side here of the leg, halfway up the leg. You want to be a bit, keep an eye on that one, because that one doesn't rub down on the pavements when they're walking, so that one can become curly and can become embedded in their skin. So keep an eye on that one and get that treated if you need to. Okay, I'm just going to do that little trim. Find it. Okay, as you can see, that didn't hurt Poppy. They're often a bit nervous to have their nails done, but it didn't hurt her. She didn't cry, and so that if they squeal or anything like that, you know that you're cutting way too short, and you need to leave that really for somebody who knows what they're doing. Okay, so once all of that is done, then dog is ready to go in the bath.